What is the most unexpected thing you've seen live on TV? In the UK, a TV personality and her son who is disabled were on a live TV show. From what I recall, the topic being discussed was online bullying. When her son was asked about what to say to these bullies, his response was, "Hello you cunts." Absolute classic British TV right there. The O.J. Simpson Bronco chase. They interrupted the NBA playoffs to show it live instead of the game. It was surreal. I can't find a clip of it anywhere, but it was Thanksgiving morning in Los Angeles, and a news team went to surprise a family in need with a full Thanksgiving dinner. They showed up to the house, and I really think they went to the wrong place. The person at the door looked confused by the name the reporter was giving them, but they were live, and I'm sure the reporter was freaking out, so she shoved her way into the home with the camera crew and a bunch of people with food. They're all standing in the living room, and the reporter is telling this bewildered woman about what food they brought. Then the woman takes a picture off the mantle, and starts crying, telling the reporter her baby died. The reporter was trying to turn the conversation back to the surprise dinner, but the woman only wanted to talk and show pictures of her dead baby. It was the cringiest thing I've ever seen on live TV. The reporter standing at a 45-degree angle, holding onto the street sign for dear life in a wind-rain storm as he was reporting. And the two dudes casually walking past, not leaning whatsoever and without difficulty. I was watching soccer a few years ago, and the referee stopped play for a foul. The slow-mo replay showed the fouling player grab the other player's shorts as he stepped across him, and used them to try to stop his momentum. The shorts stretched a long way, exposing his penis, which then proceeded to flap around in slow-mo, for about 5 seconds, whilst the commentators pretended it wasn't happening. A Formula 1 driver hitting a wall at Imola and attempts being made to resuscitate him on the track. They weren't successful. Roland Ratzenberger died during qualifying, and things continued to get out of control as crew, drivers and spectators were injured over the weekend, and Ayrton Senna died during the race. Motor racing is obviously not 100% safe, but the number of incidents and 2 fatalities over the course of a single event was astonishing. It really was like the track was cursed. I remember in college turning on the TV and seeing most of a building collapsed and learning it was the FBI building in OK City that had been bombed. A few years later, on almost the same day, watching the live coverage of the Columbine school shooting. I also remember watching the end of the Waco siege a couple years before the OK City bombing. All of these stick in my head because they all happened on the day of or before my sister's birthday, 4/20. For a few years it was like, shit, what else is going to happen on this date? Okay, so in Southern California we love our high-speed pursuits. They're regularly crazy, and every news program will switch from whatever they were going to talk about to the pursuit. It's fantastic entertainment. But sometime in the 90s, some guy being chased by the cops stopped on a freeway overpass. He got out of his car and had a shotgun in his hands. He didn't aim it at the cops, so they just set up a perimeter, and every news station waited and watched, zoomed in closely, for what was sure to be a spectacular conclusion. The guy suddenly aimed at his own face and fired, right on live TV. I heard the eye in the sky screaming, "Pull back! Pull back!" at the cameraman once the shotgun guy started to aim, but they were not quick enough. Everyone got to see this Ov's red mist lift. Everyone at school was talking about it the next day. Pretty sure a whole lot of new live news rules were put in place after that. Back in the late 90s there was a short-lived sport called slam ball. Essentially, basketball played on trampolines. It was awesome. People were dunking from 12 feet in the air. They would cross the court in 3 bounces. The tactics were amazing. I had no interest in sports at the time, but this shit was fun to watch. Like the best exhibition game you've ever seen. Except one time this dude snapped his foot off. Like, off. One time I was flipping through channels and nothing was on. Snowmobile freestyle on the Winter X Games caught my eye for no good reason. Then the guy is in the air either trying to backflip or he just rotates too far on a big jump. The snowmobile lands what looks like directly on his chest. I'm shocked, thinking surely he wasn't going to survive. I can't recall what the normal announcers were saying or if they cut to something less dramatic. But then the sideline reporter-type woman said she interviewed the athlete while he was being taken away and he felt like he just woke up from the longest dream ever. So I was optimistic since he was able to speak. Maybe even walk off under his own power. But I looked it up over the next day or two and he died in the hospital. That line from his interview still sticks with me. When I was a kid I was watching the evening news. A politician came to the microphone with a manila envelope. Said hello to everyone, then reached into the envelope and pulled out a revolver and put it under his chin and blew his head off. On live TV. So there was some kind of finale of the Swedish TV show Robinson. I think the American equivalent is Survivor or something like that. Basically it's a reality game show where a group of people are put in the wilderness and put through mild controlled survival tasks, and every week somebody gets voted out. Anyway, the finale was for some reason I can't remember, in a studio and involved every participant of the whole season, and they were all about to vote for who was going to be ultimate winner that year. When they voted they were to walk up to the camera, show the name on their vote and put it into the box. But this one guy, who had been a bit goofy on the actual show, turned up in a full tux and painted blue in the face. He walks up to the camera and shows how he just eats his own vote before he yanks the winner trophy off its pedestal and runs out, stumbling over a table or some shit in the process. It was wild. Edit, https://youtube/hdd5xw12h04. So it wasn't exactly as I recalled it. It was 20 years ago, mind you. Good stuff. Start at about 1 o'clock. In the Netherlands we have a yearly tradition to celebrate the sitting king queen, don't ask me why, and there will be a whole parade with performances and a lot of people there. This will be live on TV and a lot of people watch it from home. In 2009 there was this guy that managed to get past the security line with his car and he drove into a huge group of people and kids in front of the royal family. 8 people died because of it. Watched my longtime childhood friend neighbor have an accident on live TV and subsequently died. Games 2013, and I suppose he really died 1 week later in a coma, but the incident was broadcast and shown live. Tuned into a World Series game, it turned into a disaster film where a bunch of people died horrible deaths when the Nimitz freeway collapsed, and the clueless sports journalists had no idea what was going on as 63 people perished. This was the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, which was shows live during the Oakland A's vs Giants Game 3. A friend I would meet later was there, his first ever World Series game. I was watching Gargoyles on KCAL 9 when around 3:30 p.m. a car chase was broadcast live. A man and his dog stopped in a pickup truck on a freeway overpass. The cat burst into flames. The man jumped out and ran to the edge as if to jump onto traffic below, but at the last second he reached into the back of his truck and pulled a shotgun out and took his head off. I specifically remember his scalp spinning away. A bank robbery with the dudes in full body armor was pretty epic, and the tank chase on the freeway was cool. If you live in Southern California it's almost a daily occurrence to have car chases. There was an episode of Johnny Carson where he was talking to this older lady who was a cockroach specialist. I forget if she was a professional or just really liked roaches. But she was showing Carson this one massive roach, letting it crawl on her hands, and then she just suddenly bit it in half and ate it. I think Johnny and I had the exact same look of surprise and disgust on our faces. I'm sure I saw this, but I have never been able to find any confirmation about this episode. I was watching the show alone in my room, so my parents can't back it up. And I've never been able to find a link to a video of it. If anyone remembers this, please let me know. Grenfell Tower, I had gone to bed early and my insomnia had other ideas. Thought the news would put me back to sleep 20 minutes later, and the broadcaster looked in a state of panic while holding back tears and revealed what had just been reported. I watched all night worrying about those poor people. On another note entirely, MTV were doing live interviews with people in maybe Cannes early 2000s or similar, and the interviewer slyly naively was like, "Ah, look, it's the South Park guys Matt and Trey." And they didn't disappoint. It was broadcast at lunchtime in the UK. My great aunt was round for lunch and thought they were hilarious. My mum not so much. One was watching a Cleveland Indians game during high school, about 20 years ago. The camera was focused on a girl in the stands. I'm certain she was from my high school. I didn't know her personally, so I never asked her about it. This is a mostly uninteresting story except for one thing. We went to a high school that was about an hour south of Cleveland. The chances of her going to the game, being shown on TV, and me looking at the TV at just the right time is what makes it so unlikely, but I'm certain it was her. That moment is ingrained in my mind. They were coming back from commercial break, and there she was. She was looking at the camera, as if she were staring back at me. Then they panned out and showed the entire crowd. The whole thing was completely out of nowhere. It was a somewhat amusing WTF moment. Like I said, I didn't know her personally. I seem to recall she had a twin. One of them was our class valedictorian. Edit. I should have mentioned this event first. On another occasion, there was a tornado warning where I lived. Since we are in the Cleveland viewing area, at least one station from there interrupted whatever was on TV to bring a live weather report. On their map, they zoomed into streets literally just outside our allotment. As kids, it was surreal and scary to see a news station an hour away basically talking about a tornado coming to our neighborhood. Now that was likely a once-in-a-lifetime event. After the Michael Brown shooting, there was a live clip of an unarmed civilian walking to work with cops who looked like stormtroopers from Star Wars, and were frankly acting like them too, pointing all their big-ass guns at him like he was the world's #1 threat while on a mailbox. In clear view of live TV cameras was the words "Fuck the police" written in Sharpie, and it looked old enough to be before everything. It honestly painted the clearest picture of how citizens felt and thought about law enforcement ever, and how law enforcement in that town thought of themselves and of the citizens they were supposed to be protecting. That image alone really shook my views on the police, and after 2020 it was like I had 20/20 vision and my opinions shifted hard. So basically, thanks to whoever wrote "Fuck the Police," to CNN who had the live feed, and for years later for John Oliver reminding me of its existence. You helped change my viewpoints.